Hi everyone, welcome to AGS IS Academy of UPSC Men's for 2022, Optional Political Science PSIR and Western Political Thought. And about this, we are discussing the series of UPSC's this Western Political Thought, and we have started on the demand of the students who are going to appear for IS Men's, which are likely to be held soon. Dear friends, there are many thinkers under Western political thought of IS Men's Paul Science, but which we are discussing in a number of videos here under the banner of AGS Academy, gives you sufficient indication as to how you can write in the exams and what best can be written and what are the important thinkers which could be useful for writing. In this series today, we are going to start Thomas Hobbes 1588 to 1619, and the title of today's video is Leviathan, which is a great masterpiece, and this is part 1. Dear friends, we all know he had written number of write-ups, and Thomas Hobbes is very famous regarding social contract and famous enough who has discussed and written a lot. So as a part of introduction, what we are discussing right now in this particular video is Leviathan, and why this Leviathan is so much pragmatic and important from Thomas Hobbes' point of view. We are discussing this, commonly referred to as basically uh, the most sacred and valuable write-up of Thomas Hobbes. It got published in 1651, and this very particular book, this very particular title of the book was basically derived from biblical Leviathan. And why this is significant? Why UPSC sometimes makes you very much astonished? UPSC lets you to move and wander in a wonderland, in the sense one gives you surprises. Going further about the introductory part of this Leviathan, his particularly masterwork concerns about the different constructs of the society, the formation of the society, actually how society can function, can work, and why people love to live in peace and tranquility. Why human beings are by nature so carrying different perception of their habits, and those habits, on the top of everything, is fear psychosis. People want peace, and people never want to have fear. It's fear which really creates havoc within and without of any human being. Precisely on that account, Thomas Hobbes tries to portray the picture under this, and he writes this, which is called a masterpiece in the form of Leviathan. And definitely he is considered one of the earliest and most influential instances of social contract theory. But the terminology which came here, social contract theory, what actually it refers to, what it talks about, social contract theory actually refers to, for a gentleman, a contract on the basis of which one party surrenders every right to another party, who is accountable for the all round protections, peace and progress, law and order, and everything for the second party, precisely on the account that gives a sense of security to the second party, so much so that in society people can live in peace and tranquility. This is in precise refers to the social contract. Dear friends, as we talked, like under the banner of AGS IS Academy, there are many series are about to come, and we have started, as I said, on popular demands of dear students and applicants for this 2022 under Western political thought in various parts. So, in today's part 1, going further, Thomas Hobbes wrote this particular Leviathan in a condition, that condition was very much turmoil. And when the situation remains abnormal, when the situation remains disturbed, and when the situation remains extraordinary, then the awareness level of any author also remains and warrants extraordinary situations to call for. This is what actually happened with Thomas Hobbes. It was basically English Civil War of 1642 and 1651 which that continued. And during this period, it was a social contract and ruled by something, an absolute government. Thomas Hobbes came across and he was overseeing the situations which were basically unwanted and that were happening around him. And those disturbances were calling and then demanding a government who could be accountable, who could be able to handle the nuances prevailing within and without the country, and that was enough for a government to make the country peaceful. Dear friends, he was a keen observer and he was very disturbed by the civil war and the brute situation of a state that was engulfing everything and keeping the people nowhere because of the circumstances during 1642 to 1651. The situation was like that, where Hobbes thought, if this continues, nobody on earth can really live in peace and develop and go for progress in the society. What was the theme which was haunting Thomas Hobbes was that was fear inflicted inside the psychology of human beings, which were being witnessed at that point of time. And Thomas Hobbes, he had a strong reason which he saw that only a non fragile, only a good governance can solve the problem. He was seeing the government is fragile, utter chaos, and then not able to really go for the good governance at that point of time, and he was disturbed with this trend. Dear friends, sensing all this, basically Thomas Hobbes, he started his treatise on politics, and that treatise should be in such a way formulated that could be related to the human nature. Because when there is no good governance, it's always high time for nuances to creep over. And he presents in this situation an image that should take care, that should look after of the society and human beings, which can give a self relief about humanity. And he really explained materialistically, and that should be very much sensing a situation which can connect to the human mind about as to how things can be better represented in the form of a contract, because without a contract the society was in a very complete chaos and in a shambling position. So what he wanted through various write-ups, a good governance and absolute system of the governance which can take care. In various write-ups, let us find some write-ups which he had written and that were very famous. Besides Leviathan, Nature and Politics, and under this title Human Nature, Basically, it got published in 1650, and then further was in English as philosophical rudiments, and that was concerning about government and society in 1651. Again and again, Leviathan got published in 1651 itself, and its Latin version, Latin revision in 1668, uh, the world came across. In addition to the write-ups, what Thomas Hobbes wrote, as he was very expert in writing, so he also focused and shed light on the English Civil War. As you know, we just now explained and tried to say he was passing through a time which was very much terrible, and that terrible time was about the English Civil War. And going down the line further, there was a write up of dialogue between a philosopher and a student of the common laws of England, and that got published in 1681. Further write up, if we mention of Thomas Hobbes, we can find the questions concerning liberty, necessity, and chance. And dear friends, it was already published in 1656. So, what we find, major writings and of its collection in the English works of Thomas Hobbes, basically in due course of time, got edited by a very good name, Sir William Molesworth. So, dear friends, not only that, in due course of time, but what got popularity? The popularity which got very famous was Leviathan, which we are discussing today in a sense that is so important, and that really takes care about the situation, that really talks about as to how, if the peace will not be there, if the guardian will not be there, if the head of the state will not be there in the right perspective, what will happen? There will be utter chaos, there will be utter problem everywhere, and that will be not acceptable for a civilized society. Dear friends, in this sense, because he says life is not stagnant, it's a constant, it keeps on moving, it keeps on going, and for that, that is whether you take heart, mind, spring, nerves, joints, everything is like a wheel which keep on moving with the passage of time. So then what is required is there need to be a sense of peace divide of fair psychosis. Dear friends, according to Hobbes, good and evil are nothing more than terms. Basically, good gets established with the happening of the good governance. Otherwise, in the absence of it, evil takes over, and that creates nonsense and happens to be problematic for everybody of the society, which Thomas Hobbes wants to avoid. Dear friends, continuing this further, appetites and desires, and basically what happens, these two things take human beings to the point of committing evils, to the point of committing inhuman activities, and how these things can be controlled. This can be controlled with the incarnation of hope. And what is hope? Nothing more than an appetite for a better thing. And that can lead to a society which could be controlled and which could be governed by a right man. And he is talking about, because the situation was very much, friends, was very much unwanted. It was turmoil, it was disturbances. So can you imagine if the situation is like this, then automatically for any author, he or she will reflect what is happening in the society, and if the same is the peace lover, will try to see the state in a robust position, and that was only possible. What Thomas Hobbes pens here is through a great undivided head of the state should be there. And Hobbes describes human psychology basically with reference to summum bonum, in other sense, with the greatest good. And not only is the concept of a summum bonum superfluous, but given the variability of human desire, it cannot be achieved so soon. And then there's no limit of basically ecstasy of human appetites. Dear friends, political community of that time actually wanted to see the greatest good should be available in and around the state, but that was not happening, and that was disturbing persons like Thomas Hobbes as to what to be done and how to be done, what solutions can be found out. In the absence of it, could be very much problematic. Dear friends, then if it is not stopped here, that can lead to a civil war, and already around civil war situation was prevailing. Thomas Hobbes states that greatest evil for entire situations what is happening, why this is happening, is because of fear of violent death. A situation is prevailing around that is wanting, and that is creating a fear which is leading to death of the humanity which is not being asked for. Friends, in that sense, it's very much desirable. How the peace, how the development, how the progress can then be restored and can then be really called for. And in the natural state of man is not to be found in a political committee that pursues the greatest good in the absence of real head of the state. That is a big question which he wanted to ask himself, and he wanted to ask from the contemporaries. But the answer was not easily available, so he was really terribly disturbed as to what to be done. Then he pants about from this introductory part. Then I take you to the next level of his write-up is state of nature. Basically, state of nature is what? It refers to a situation where what actually is happening in a society of any country or anywhere in the world. That is state of nature. And the same thing was being seen and observed by Thomas Hobbes, which he describes in state of nature. Given human nature, he says, the variability of human nature is full of desires. We all know about human nature that man is born what do you think? Man is born like non-selfish? Man is born very like kind of saint and sadhu or prophet? No, man is full of what Thomas Hobbes says. He says man is full of solitary, man is full of poor, nasty, brutish, and short, of course greedy. So man can never be fulfilled with piousness. If one factor is fulfilled about the greed factor, man becomes further greeder, and then further wants and appetites never really dry out. So in the state of nature, Hobbes calls this anarchic condition, a situation which is almost a war of all against a war of all against all, means very panic, disturbing, alarming in the country of that situation of Thomas Hobbes, what he's talking of that era. Dear friends, a state of nature, what was painted was very horrible. If any third party can hear about the state of nature of any country, can really never imagine to travel that country which is being painted like this, what Thomas Hobbes of that time painted. Maybe we cannot rule out that he told something unacceptable. Definitely these factors could be prevailing at that time. So Thomas Hobbes was of the fact remembering and knowing, analyzing, seeing the situation, and then writing the book. Dear friends, even when two men are not fighting, it is said, it's very interesting. Say, for example, when two men are not fighting, as according to Thomas Hobbes, what he says, man is really greedy, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Man never is really, you know, pious. Who says this? This is being told by Thomas Hobbes. And definitely, when he talks about a state of nature, in the state of nature, which is a war of all against all, and a state of nature requires basically peace, mentality, and mentality for the development and progress, and that's not possible, in the absence of a good governance. Dear friends, there is one very typical example of it. It is said, when two human beings are living peacefully, then and spending their life properly, but is there any guarantee that they will not be attacked? Is there a guarantee that they will be living with peace and tranquility? No. If the situation is not good in that country, in that area, in that society, then even two persons will live in chaos, anarchy, terror, and fear. Why? Because the environment is like that. What Thomas Hobbes was thinking about that country of Europe where he was living and discussing. Dear friends, what is significant is he says people's property will not be safe, honor, respect, dignity, all will be gone if that is not taken care of. And that is possible through peace only. But then state of nature is talking about, okay, uh, this creates chaos, and that chaos, unless cannot be preemptively taken care of, will create chaos, will create anarchy. In that sense of the term, while Thomas Hobbes was writing, dear friends, in such condition, how the industry will flourish, how the peace will come, how the development will grow, how uncertainty will vanish. There will be a sense of cultural conflict. There will be a sense of no navigation or no commodities flourishing or being imported by sea or by transportation or by through air route, and then no construction, no development or studying, education, and no development of arts, no development of society. What will happen? Everywhere will be chaos and anarchy, and that is very much typically a poor shade of light, uncalled for, and therefore Thomas Hobbes says there will be sense of continual fear and danger of violent death, and man's life, dignity, respect definitely will not be safe. Dear friends, why he wrote this? Because he wanted to avoid all this, and he did not want to see his fellow man or the state or the country in this turmoil situation, and wanted to avoid the state of nature as the place where the summum malum of violent death is most likely to occur in one or other form, because that is problematic, and the pole star of political reasoning requires for any society, for any person, for any writer, for any thinker to think in such a way that could be taken care of, which could be useful to decide how the country, how the society, how the people should look like in the peaceful way. Dear friends, the point is how this can be done, how rightful, lawful governance should be enforced, and what should be done so that the chaotic situation could be thwarted, and then normalcy can be brought, and then peace can be handled in such a way which could be applicable to each and everyone. Dear friends, Thomas Hobbes' explicit opinion about the state of nature can be considered definitely a big way for everyone to see a right to all, how everyone can survive, how everyone can live, and in the state of nature, what is important is that the society should live in a peaceful way, not being surrounded by the fear. Dear friends, in this sense, the state of nature has to erect a commonwealth and with the help of the authority which can command them in all things. That was the beginning to think about the social contract or what can be called of commonwealth. And Hobbes then goes on saying that additional laws if required that can be performed, that can be done, and then that can be explained for a sovereign to represent the people when they disagree with the sovereign. That should be the solutions for that. There should be something, some mechanisms on the basis of which social contract can be developed, what he gave the name, and that was about commonwealth. So dear friends, now I'll talk about the next part, that is about commonwealth. And under commonwealth, basically the objective, the very logic, and the final cause of this was to end the chaos, the lawlessness, the brutality, and create an environment where man can love humanity and can love liberty and cannot dominate over others. Dear friends, the introduction of these kind of situations could lead to in the form of social contract that can transfer into commonwealth, and in which we can see life secured and the foresight of on preservation of the people and more complacent life and getting themselves out from the misery, and then can lead their life of happiness, of choices, how and in what capacity they want to do and they really prefer to. Dear friends, the natural passion of human beings always have been to have the power, to have the peace, to have the development, and by fear of punishment or fear of being attacked and invaded, nobody can really survive and can always create any kind of problem. So, if you talk about from the eyes of Thomas Hobbes, what actually Commonwealth refers to, a kind of situation in which all agree that I authorize and give up my right of governing myself to this man or to this assembly of man on this condition that you give up your right to him and authorize all his actions in like manner. What it refers to, what it suggests is that everybody should give up his or her right and give to the second party, and that second party, when getting all rights, will try to work properly, will try to develop properly, will try to maintain law and order in the society, and the public should not be in fear psychosis. The public should not feel that they are in chaos and they are facing tremendous problems. So that is very very important, not to face these kind of problems. Dear friends, so this was basically in brief commonwealth what Thomas Hobbes was talking. Then we'll now switch over to the next part, and that is about sovereign principles rights. Sovereign principle rights given by Leviathan, and how these rights could be useful and how it can be helpful to procure peace and development in society. He talks about in this uh, part of various principles of rights, and what he says, a situation should be such that where sovereign can possibly work, and Commonwealth should take care of everything uh, in all capacities so that human beings remain free from chaos and anarchy, and sovereign power will exist because the majority gave the consent to allow the sovereign power to rule, which he called Commonwealth. And in this sense, the minority also agreed to abide by this arrangement, and then must then assent to the sovereign's actions, which was actually empowered by the majority of the sovereign people. In the sense, the public, they gave the consent, so everybody should give the consent so that the Commonwealth can function properly, Commonwealth can work properly, and every subject otherwise is the author of the acts, and he or she can really work out in a way which could be useful for the development, peace, and progress. Dear friends, what is said that Commonwealth will be a good platform for the subject to surrender the power, and in lieu of that, the Commonwealth will take care from all perspectives and will allow everybody to live in peace, and no accused, no criminals will go scot free. Dear friends, the sovereign cannot justly be put to death by the subjects. He says that once you give the power to the Commonwealth, then it's right time for you to understand actually as to how it's important to take care about the situations, what will be there, the government will take care, but you don't need to violate that. And the very objective of the Commonwealth would be to create conducive environment for everybody so that everybody can live in peace and development, and everybody will have the right to do whatever is good in their interest. It will be the Commonwealth that will take care necessary actions for preserving of peace and security and prevention of discord. Dear friends, it will the rightful platform for the sovereign, rather for the Commonwealth, to take the decision as and when requires, as and when happens, to deal with all kind of situations, be it political, be it non-political, or whatever it is, and will be allowed to speak to multitudes, and who can examine the doctrines of all books before they are published. What does it mean? It means it will the sovereign, it will the Commonwealth, which will be acting as a decisive role on behalf of the consented, means the public, and that will take care, and their demands will be taken care of by the Commonwealth, and the rules of civil law and property will be taken care of. Nobody will be really in trouble, nobody will face fierce psychosis. Dear students, dear friends, I hope till now you got the clarity what I'm trying to say, because what you are finding in this video is it is giving you all aspects of Leviathan, and whatever the question being asked, whatever UPSC wants to ask from you, you'll be able to connect the dots and will be able to write yourself, and even you can make notes from this. Some important points you can find out, not only for UPSC, for any exam purposes. This is quite useful, which you can use for optimizing your marks. So continuing further, in this sense, Thomas Hobbes says, whether it's a situation of civil war, turmoil, or disturbances, Commonwealth which was made will take care and will choose councillors, ministers magistrates, other office bearers, and then administrative staffs, and then assistants to help the Commonwealth to execute law and order, to make policy accordingly, and then the government can run correspondingly. Dear friends, whether it's the question of rich, poor, or anybody, the law will be same for everyone, and law will be meant for keeping the society peace and harmony there. And Thomas Hobbes, he does not believe in separation of powers. He is in favor of completely suppressing the freedom of the press. He does not like the ultimate freedom of the press, the media, because they talk, they believe, they do whatever. Sometimes they might be deviating from the real course of the objectives of the nation. So he puts censorship on the press and restrictions on the rights of free speech. And he says that cannot be considered very much desirable by the Commonwealth, which is promoting law and order. Sometimes it can go against the very ethics of those eras, those situations, those conditions which could not be useful from maintaining law and order. Dear friends, then from there, law of principle of sovereign rights, I take you to the next level of Leviathan by Thomas Hobbes. That's about different kinds of governance. He has categorized different kinds of governance into three classifications, and that is based on different capacities. So far, Commonwealth is considered regarding sovereignty. And he says that there can be three representatives of all, and which can represent Commonwealth. The point is, sovereignty is neither in one man or in an assembly or more than one into the assembly. Basically, sovereignty is very much significant, important, which could be useful from all perspective, and not everyone can handle this, but it has own distinguished characteristics, and it is manifest, uh, which could be useful. And three kinds of commonwealth according to the sovereignty can be taken into consideration. For the representatives, whosoever wants to represent the commonwealth in the form of sovereignty, it can be representative by one person, it can be representatives by assembly, or it can be representatives by together. But actually, when it will happen, the representation of commonwealth by one person, then it can be turned out to be, you can say, from commonwealth a monarchy. The terminology can be used as monarch. So the monarch will be the person who will be handling the state of affairs in the right perspective, and the monarch will be the one who will be handling the country, law and order, development, everything. And but if we talk about the second type of commonwealth sovereignty, it could be handled by an assembly of all that will come together, and that can be in the form of democratic representation, or you can also call this democratic representation in the form of popular commonwealth. Dear friends, in this sense, it can be said that popular commonwealth, which now we find in modern nation state as a democratic type of governance. But then Thomas Hobbes gives us these three classifications of governance, and he also talks about the last one, about three type. Uh, One, it happens in the form of an assembly of a party or part only, that can be termed as aristocracy. Dear friends, having sensed that, having seen everything and different perspectives of these three kinds of commonwealth, consistent not in the difference of power, but it can be in the form of convenience or aptitude to produce the peace and security of the people. Dear friends, what I discussed just now in this video under the banner of AGS Academy, therefore, dear friends, role of a monarch is very significant so far. The peace development, ruling, and managing the state affairs is concerned. A monarch has to discharge his own responsibilities in a sense that's very significant. Monarch enjoys tremendous power, that's true. But the reality is that a monarch has to be sensible also. According to Thomas Hobbes, if he is given tremendous power to regulate, maintain, and manage for the sake of the city, state, and country, also is the accountability which is desirable and needed for a monarch to handle the situation, come whatever is possible. Plausibly, he has to look into the realities prevailing at the point of time inside the country and beyond. For no king can be rich, poor, or secure or glorious unless the monarch is able to maintain a war against their enemies. Unless the monarch will be only good when the public really supporting the monarch, and the public will never support based on only coercion. What Thomas Hobbes says. Dear friends, what it talks about is in a democracy or aristocracy, the public prosperity conforms not so much to the private fortune as it can be under the right perspective. Dear friends, Thomas Hobbes favors a good monarch who could be really fruitful for running the head of the state. It's about monarch how he handles through right methods, through treacherous actions, or what suits best to monarchic system should be taken into consideration. Dear students, now I take you to the next level of Thomas Hobbes under Leviathan, and that is about succession. He talks about succession under the regime of monarch, how this can be possible, what can be done, what should be the methodology, and how the right of succession can be only with the sovereign. And here sovereign is with commonwealth. Aristocracies or democracies can have easy successions, but dear friends, let me tell you, regarding the case of monarchy, it becomes harder, difficult, and sometimes obscure to find the right choices or the only choice which could be useful for handling the state of affairs of any country. Friends, it also can happen the greatest difficulty as to how the right of succession can be chosen for monarchy suitably, and the difficulty can also arise amongst the princes, and they can fight themselves for the golden throne of the state. The monarch at times can be bewildered as to how the right succession can be manifested, and who can appoint the right successor, nor many times can be useful and decidable how a suitable successor can be appointed. In both the cases, it's a big Herculean task as to how the succession can be taken into consideration, because in general public don't want that kind of succession which can create havoc for their lives. But then there is a careful requirement of selection, as here democracy does not involve based on popular belief, but it's one way traffic for somebody to be selected and appointed as a monarch without direct voices being taken by the public. However, the succession of monarch is definitely a big gift. And regarding the question of appointment, if monarch, whether or not monarch is really able to install a right here, then what should be done? It's always desirable that in advance the right person can be appointed in advance that can take care of commonwealth, because commonwealth's power is supreme, and as we know that has been constituted by the consent of the majority and minority both. So the consent of the public becomes very very important in that sense. Dear friends, it's really significant. In modern times, if we make a comparative study of Thomas Hobbes and now today's world of monarch, you can see like the case of any monarchical country of Middle East, what you will find is it really sometimes turns out to be a point of thorn, a big struggle to see the right person who can really handle the entire monarchy of the regime. Sometimes it leads to great conflict in the family, and the turmoil starts, and that casts really big shadow over the entire regime of the country for the public. And it also happens sometimes it creates havoc. Dear friends, what is important is, so dealing this is very very important in both the situations. It may lead to the massacre of Keith and Keynes in the family, and no matter what, who is brother, sister, whatever it is. So it's very very important. Monarch should be careful to appoint the next successor, dear friends, and be that in expressed form or testament. There must be natural sign of selecting, on the basis of which, or even customary traditions can also be followed if required. Whenever there is the custom to select the next of kindred, absolutely should be taken into consideration, and also the next of kindred right to the succession all depends if the commonwealth has this law or tradition or values to select. Dear friends, or if the will of the monarch is already in possession and already selected, then definitely it becomes much easier for the king to appoint the right person. And generally it happens for the lifetime regarding monarchic system is concerned. It also happens that one selected does not really leave the throne unless being dethroned. and that rarely happens. Though Thomas Hobbes is not in favor to dethrone somebody who has been really appointed as a monarch of the state. Now I take you to the next level of Leviathan, and the subtitle of this under Thomas Hobbes he talks about that's about religion. Thomas Hobbes also discusses about religious affairs of the state in Leviathan, and he gives a note of caution to the authority of the monarch that it is generally assumed that the faith of anybody is considered to be private and does not need to be touched upon. By doing so, that can be problematic for the king. However, Thomas Hobbes has different opinion regarding the religious discourse, regarding the private practices. What is significant is as a note of caution by Thomas Hobbes to the monarch that monarch can interfere, can take a stand as and when requires if that is in the interest of the society and the state. However, he wants to avoid any kind of discord which could be dangerous from public point of view, from social or cross sections point of view. And Hobbes paints a picture of his own religious theory but narrates that a sovereign king needs to be careful in handling the sensitive matter of the public's privacy. Dear friends, the question of faith, property, women, these issues have always been sensitive right from time immemorial. It's not that only in the situation of Thomas Hobbes this is being discussed. The reality is that even under Leviathan, which was written during the Civil War, whether this theory is acceptable or not, but corresponding to Hobbes' materialistic presuppositions, he also held a view that the king should not consider and should not indulge into controversial aspects of the governance. And from Thomas Hobbes' rejection of incorporeal substances and regarding even God himself supposed to be a corporeal substance speaks volumes. Dear friends, dear friends, though what actually is the position of Hobbes, some people talk about whether he was theist or atheist. Needless to add in this connection, about his personality, he could be any one of them. Though many of the thinkers might allude to the probability that he could be the part or components of atheist, but that is a different possibility, and no matter what the personal conviction an author can carry is hardly a matter of substance in this connection when there is a possibility of being discussed about Leviathan that is so important. Dear friends, in this video what I am discussing about, it's not only directly you will be able to answer any question which can be indirect, which can be direct, which can be either of them. What is important here with this video is when you take entire look of this video, when you come across, you will have the liberties and choices to pick up sentences of your choices, to make notes, to reframe, to have your thoughts, which could be useful for you as to how you'll be able to address any questions or queries which creep over in any capacities from exams point of view, and that will be helpful in your individual capacity. So this was in brief about religion. Dear friends, now the question is, and that might be striking in everybody's mind, whether or not Thomas Hobbes also talked about taxation under Leviathan. Was that a reality? As we all know, the world today is crippling over taxes, taxes, taxes. Particularly, every country in the world has different kind of taxes. But this is also true, we should understand. Genuine and rational taxes are needed to run the government. So was the case with Thomas Hobbes when he talks about taxation. He says, sovereign's ability to tax in Leviathan could be widely a point of consideration for a government, for a monarch. Otherwise, how a monarch will be able to handle the situation if he is not getting the tax from the public? It's not the question of overtaxing, but rational taxing is needed to rationalize the governance of any country. So is being suggested by Thomas Hobbes to monarch. Dear friends, Hobbes believed that equal justice includes the equal imposition of taxes. That's also very significant. And he further justifies the quality of taxes does not depend on equality of wealth. That's a very interesting part from the contemporary world's political discourse point of view. It may not hold as weight as it could have been, but what Thomas Hobbes refers to is equality of the debt, which probably under the Commonwealth regime or state of nature might be carrying every man, and for his defense and necessity it becomes significant for the ruler to go for maintenance and for the rule of law, for the development, for peace and progress, for all on development and welfare. It was needed for Thomas Hobbes to suggest that a monarch can do or impose certain amount of taxes that could be legalized, rather rational, logical, and enforceable. Dear friends, he is not talking unjustifiable taxes need to be imposed and that needs to be unfair. No. What Thomas Hobbes talks about during his own era is he championed public support and for those without the levy of taxes, how the government can, if the government is good, if the government is fair, then the tax should be is really important for running the government, so that poor people, backward people, or people who really cannot afford to live life can be given support, can be useful in the form of tax to nurture them. Dear friends, encouragement of works of navigation could also be useful from monarch's point of view to support the public, as if the public is not given proper support, what will happen? There will be enough chances to create a sense of chaos and anarchy. And therefore he talked about disposition of the taxes should be imposed and the tax should be properly levied by the monarch in favor of the public. Dear friends, this is some like subtitles and subheadings and some discourses about Leviathan. Before I really talk about a very important part of Leviathan from exam's point of view, and that's about kingdom of darkness. And that's so significant. Dear friends, once again you are welcome back under this particular banner special heading of Leviathan and series of part 1 of Thomas Hobbes, and a topic which is so significant from exam's point of view we are discussing. So the next level of this discussion is about the kingdom of darkness. Imagine the word itself speaks volumes. The kingdom plus darkness means he's telling, he is making the regime itself a kingdom, and that of darkness. How significant could be? Why he talks like this and why he discussed like this? For the very simple reason, Thomas Hobbes named part 4th of his book Kingdom of Darkness. And in this particular part 4th, he talks about in detail. But kingdom of darkness does not mean that hell. It means ignorance, lack of knowledge. People were after people, fighting against each other. They were not behaving like a people, like a person, like a general citizen. And the ocean of darkness, ocean of ignorance and lack of knowledge of true knowledge was something. The interpretation of Thomas Hobbes is largely, you can say, unorthodox. So much so that, and he finds solid reason behind the understanding of how the people used to fight. Why at all? People cannot live together in a peaceful situation. But the question also creeps over. People can live only in peace when there is the environment of peace. When there is lawlessness and chaos everywhere from Thomas Hobbes' point of view, it really becomes difficult for an ordinary citizen, even for the top notch, to really live life of choices in that environment. Precisely on that account, Thomas Hobbes narrates it as a form of kingdom of darkness, and that is also a kingdom of confederacy of deceivers. He says like this, and everybody in this kingdom wants to dominate over others for no reason. No reason why. Every person wants to quench his thirst, appetite by dominating over others, snatching others' rights, and wants to obtain dominion over man in this temporal world. The kingdom of darkness also refers to erroneous doctrines that can really lead to the extinguishing of the light. This is the era which Thomas Hobbes paints it. Causes of darkness which misinterprets scripture of light. Dear friends, the main argument what he puts forward to is the kingdom of God can also be found in the guise of church, in the guise of God. In the guise of God here means accepted God, not that God. God here means people's faith belief in different kind of perceptions. No need to connect the supreme God. Here general it refers to person's belief. Dear friends, the kingdom of God can be undermining also the situation of civil sovereign. If the sovereignty is really lacking or lacked, then definitely authority will be at stake, and that will lead to darkness or lack of knowledge, and then it will automatically stop rationalizing things for the general public. Dear friends, undermining the authority of the king is a big problem for the society, for the state, for the nation to move on. A state, a country can only develop and progress when there is a sense of confidence, there is a sense of justice, there is a sense of development, there is a sense of peace and tranquility that definitely, according to Thomas Hobbes, rises and grows up. According to Thomas Hobbes' opinion, it's under the kingdom of darkness, it's people's mind that are really problematic if not used properly. The right mind can create good environment, cannot fight against each other, can avoid civil war, and they cannot they cannot worship devils and satans. They can move and talk and believe in the practices of the goals, the visions, the development, the peace and progress. Dear friends, here the kingdom of darkness also refers to creating havoc and anarchy by mixing wrongs with rights, by disguising wrongs as a true which is not true, and the erroneous philosophy cannot be implemented, cannot be planted. What Thomas Hobbes talks is significant. Anything could be from Aristotle's civil philosophy. People can learn a lot, all manner of commonwealth, and also can learn about the state of Athens. Darkness is basically the reflection of the suppression of knowledge, and that can lead to the introduction of falsification, which is not in anybody's interest eventually. Temporarily, that can turn out to be okay, this is true, this reflects good, but in reality, that can be contrary. Dear friends, what is significant and important is Thomas Hobbes wants good governance, and that can be in the form of the right strategy, right planning, right helm of affairs through good governance, not by suppression of truth, not by lies, not by hypocrites, but a kingdom can only be rightful position in a kingdom only can sail through the prosperity when it adopts truth and it believes in all round development. But yes, sometimes Thomas Hobbes, it can be said, he also suggests that some measures can be adopted by the government, by the monarch, though that may be harsh or untruth also, for the sake of maintaining good governance and countering rebellion, so much so that the reality of the governance can be seen and the darkness from the horizon can be divided. Dear friends, what we are talking right now speaks volumes about exactly how Thomas, Thomas Hobbes tried to paint the picture of Leviathan that is so significant. The question is, does it have bearing of this masterpiece which was written at that time? In today's global discourse of a civilized and of a globalized world, can we draw any parallel about what Thomas Hobbes talked in Leviathan anywhere in the world and how relevant that time it was and could be in 21st century? That is something, a point to be introspected. Dear friends, what is essential is it obviously this is a mega masterpiece of Thomas Hobbes, and that is very significant and needs to be understood. In this video you learnt different subtitles, cross sections, and to conclude, it really acted as a tool of understanding. The entire gist of this Leviathan can be concluded with the facts that he was the product of his time, Thomas Hobbes, and he painted the picture which was desirable according to that, and he wanted to avoid it and wanted to see the light of the day. This is how, and this is all about, dear friends, in this particular episode of part 1 of Political Science, Optional Western Political Thought under Thomas Hobbes, Leviathan. If really it enlightened you from your perspective, do like, share, subscribe under the banner of AGS IS Academy. Thanks for watching.